Yeah, yeah.
This is an InSo Media product curated by my man Sam Anderson. This is season 2, episode 17 of the Randy Wilson podcast. I'm super excited today, though, to welcome back our co-host, our new co-host. You've seen her in episode 15, Dr. Tiffany Jana. I am just so happy to get season 2 going with Dr. Jana. I've seen the most success from her show, so she accepted a staple. We've stapled her down, and she is going to be with us for a while. We look forward to any feedback that you have for us in our inbox. Feel free to inbox either one of us if you have ideas or interest in being on the show. We're definitely looking forward to talking to you. But again, we're here with Jamaa King, and Dr. John is going to go ahead and give him his very warm welcoming.
Jamaa, it's good to have you here.
What's up? How you doing?
I'm doing really well. I'm really excited that you're here to join us today. And really looking forward to introducing those who don't know you to you.
That's probably everybody. I don't think anybody doing it like, oh, who's that guy? I'm like, oh, no. He does the stuff.
You're a rather memorable person.
Well, those who do know me, they're like, okay, I do know that guy, but most people don't know me. I don't go out often to be into the press or media. Like,
No, you don't. That's why I feel like I scored a coup by getting you to join us here today. It's amazing.
All right, so I am happy to help and talk to you guys about whatever. How do you like me to? How do you start this?
I want to know if you want to give folks an idea of who you are and what you are passionate about. So for the folks who don't know you, which there's probably only 5 of them, go ahead and tell those folks what you do, how you do it.
I am Jamaa Bickley-King. I wear multiple hats and I do a lot of different work depending on who hires me. For the most part, for money, I am a data technology consultant in politics and the progressive movement, usually facing people of color organizations, nonprofits, sometimes corporations, and sometimes countries. And then then I have like a different role in the progressive movement. I am the chairman, president, and co-founder of New Virginia Majority, which is the anchor progressive organization that does a lot of work in the C3 and C4 space. And we do a lot of stuff in people of color activation, voter registration, restoration of rights, environmental justice, climate justice, immigration work, which is one of our core things that we do. And then there's a host of other things. I like to think of our office as like the progressive United Nations. There's like literally every wing of the progressive movement is represented there, and it's been good so far.
Awesome. So when I was thinking of the list of people to invite to season 2, I was looking for people who use their intelligence, their expertise, their acumen, their passion in service of a better world, essentially. And what I want to know, the list of things that you just rattled off, like you're doing a lot. You're doing a whole lot.
Hey, I'm doing the most.
You are doing the most.
I'm doing the most right now.
So what I want to know is, like, what is it that drives you? Why do you do what you do? Because a lot of people talk about change, a lot of people wish for change, but you're out here in these streets making it happen. Like, what's motivating you?
I've been doing this, I've realized, like almost like 20 years, a little over 20 years now, like since it's a conversation about starting in 2001 with the Warner campaign and then coming in and out of politics and government, and then becoming a consultant for myself, and then going back and forth between what we call the partisan layer of the political spectrum, which is like, candidate work and working for the party, and then also C3, the nonpartisan stuff where you're just doing issue work, and then there's the C4 work, which is basically like issue aligned organizations supporting and going against candidates, which is like the different kind of buckets of the roughly the progressive movement. And I kind of worked in all of those, and in different stages in life I do that work depending on who has hired me, or sometimes it's a project that I want to do and I try and start it and kind of push it out there. That work is very hard because, like the big conversation now is like, okay, are people getting paid? Are we paying black people? Are you hiring black people? This isn't a new problem. This is something that's been going on for like decades. And as like one of the older people who's been in there for a while, it's one of those things like it was always challenging to support and sustain yourself, where there's like these feast and famine cycles where like, federal cycle, there's all the money in the world, and then there's an off cycle where there's not so much money. One of the other challenges that when we founded New Virginia Majority, and I don't have any regret about the way we founded it, but one of the offshoots is that in order to build it up and found it because it was facing people of color, and we wanted to lead it by people of color that they could not get money from it.
Right.
And it's only till recently a lot of my colleagues in the progressive movement thought that I was getting money from the nonprofit. I'm like, no, that's not the case. You know, like there's a really significant reason as why not to do that, making sure that the whole board leadership structure is all volunteer, because there's a history of black organizations or black facing organizations or people of color facing organizations having board members pay money. And once you have board members being paid money from the entity, it kind of like frays a little bit. I'm not saying it can't be done, but the history is just against us.
Yeah.
You know.
So where are you originally from?
I was born in Ann Arbor, Michigan, but I came here when I was like about 3 or 4. So I'm basically a Richmonder ever since. My family is from here. My father was born and raised here. My mother, she's from West Virginia. They met in Michigan, and they came down here. And so I've been here since then. It's an interesting journey growing up in the South with like, you know, kind of the hippie parents and like being a vegetarian in the 80s and the 90s as a black person in the South. Yeah. People don't know what that word meant. Yeah. You know, it was always, you know, my favorite story is like my mom sent me to like school and John B. Kerry, and she had a note on, you know how you pin things like kindergartners. It says, oh, he's a vegetarian. She talked to the principal, she talked to the vice principal, she talked to the head person. He's a vegetarian, he can't eat meat. And they're like, all right, cool. First day of school, go in there, got a little pin saying, I can't eat meat. Little pin to my chest. Cafeteria. I get in there, she gives me chicken. I'm like, ma'am, I'm vegetarian, I don't think I can eat this. She said, don't worry, baby, chicken's not meat. And I'm like, wow. So in the South, I want y'all to know,
Chicken's not meat.
Chicken not meat.
No,
it's a walking vegetable that just clucks and shit.
So I'm really curious, Jamaa, just on this pathway to all these things that you're doing, and obviously doing extremely well. Take us back. First off, what led you to, well, yeah, I mean, very well. You seem to be a very modest, humble guy, but the work that you're doing, I mean, we as a community are extremely appreciative of that. I'm just looking at the work that you've done and with data on behalf of helping the NAACP, but I want to go back.
Okay.
What led you to tech? Well,
I actually got my degree in electrical engineering from Virginia Tech, and it's really interesting because I actually was not supposed to be doing politics at all. I graduated Virginia Tech, double E, and I actually had a job with Sprint helping build their cell towers through one of their subsidiaries. I think it was Galaxy. I think it was called Galaxy Quest or something like that. And I had the job lined up. I'm ready to go. And then the housekeeper for my grandfather didn't show up. And so I'm like, I just finished college, chilling. .com boom. I know I'm aging myself, but you know, people getting jobs left and right, signing bonuses for engineers and stuff. They're like, we'll get you this salary and here's 20 grand if you sign with us right now, because they like just couldn't get enough of it. You know, everybody's like technology, everything, woo! And so my grandfather's housekeeper doesn't show up, and I'm like, cool, I can get a job whenever. .com boom. They money for days. I'm not sweating it. And days turn into weeks, we turn into months, and I end up taking care of my grandfather in a more substantial fashion. And then, you know, I don't take to not working well. And so I decide that I'm going to start doing, you know, grants and like doing performance statements. And, you know, because it's .com boom, everybody got stupid ideas on what they're going to sell on the internet. You know, I'm going to sell shower curtains for dogs and we're going to make millions. It's going to be great. And I'm like, whatever, dog, I'll help you with your business plan, you know, like, for that thing. And then, you know, I would get paid by doing that, and then also was doing like, you know, numbers for voting rights grants, you know, like doing the numbers, doing the research, census data, figuring out what their yield is and all that stuff. Basically, you know, applying my engineering education to doing civic engagement work and helping the numbers exist in nature, because that's one of the big problems when you do this work is that people write proposals of what they're going to do and they're just making stuff up and it doesn't exist in nature. And what I had a talent for is grounding that. And then, like, I was going to get this job with NAACP voter fund. But they didn't want to hire me. They wanted to hire this other person first because I'll be your deputy. And they were negotiating with her. They were going back and forth, and I was just waiting. And then Mark Warner comes in because he wants my grandfather's endorsement. My grandfather's very self-sufficient. He's coming in. He has the walker coming around there. Mark Warner.
Who's your grandfather?
My grandfather is Oliver Hill Sr.,
Wow.
And
Oh, you just, that's,
then,
my gosh.
and then he was coming, he's like, can you endorse him? And then like I tell him what I'm doing. He's like, yo man, can I, I tell him my story. And then like he gives me his business card. He says, if they don't hire you, I'll hire you. And so I waited like 24 hours. I called the business card. It said, Mark Warren's in for a job, And next thing you know, I'm in his field office in Richmond.
Wow.
And then I grew up through the ranks from a deputy to managing the whole office to managing the whole region. And then I got a job in his administration. But before that, I did a stretch at the U.S. Senate working for the clerk, who Susan Clark Shar is a brilliant woman. I think she's still there. And I learned how the process was in government and all that stuff and how things work. And then from there, I got an appointment to the governor's office. And then from there, I became a consultant through like this weird conversation with this guy at a coffee shop toward the end of administration where, he wanted me to look into his cousin being in prison. Because there was this prison lore got to be that Jamaa could get people out of prison, which is total bullshit. That's not a thing. It's only because my grandfather had this one court case that he just couldn't close because he got older, blind, whatever. And what I did was I went to the Secretary of Commonwealth's office and I mentioned to him can you guys look at this thing? I know y'all can't do anything and promise it. Just look at this thing because they don't have that ability. Yeah, the pro board handles that. They're independent and all that fun stuff for good reasons. And they looked at it. They said this. They looked at it. They told the pro board to kind of look at it again because it was this case where this kid was he was in a robbery, kidnapping. This is before and the other people all around him committed the crime. He kept quiet. So they gave him all of it for not talking, even though the other people were the actors, which was this huge injustice. I know it doesn't surprise me. The guy was black. And they threw the book at this guy, and he just knew he was going to die in prison. And then because I just asked them to look at it, it gets to the prison grapevine like, that dude can get you out. It's like, no, that's not true. None of those things are true. But I met his cousin. I said I looked into it, and his cousin, he was not getting out of prison because his stuff was really significantly challenging. And so I looked into it, and he talked about it. He said about consulting. And I talked to him about it, and I became a consultant. And that's where I became a consultant before I got into the heavily political consulting work. I was consulting for government, and that's how I kind of had that journey. And then from there, I went to NAACP multiple times through another connection of a friend I met through some campaign work. And his wife is this brilliant woman named Makani Thumba-Nixon, who was running an organization out in D.C. called the Praxis Project. And they were like, Jamaa, we need, I didn't know at the time it was an audition. She just asked me for some numbers. I went out there, did some research, gave her some numbers, a little report, sent it off, no big deal. Apparently it was an audition for bigger work where I was actually up there writing proposals and helping them with their proposals with their bigger grant, because they were a Ford re-granter at the time where I think they re-grant money from the Ford Foundation to other African-American groups to kind of help with that, help take big chunks of money and give it to the groups on the ground, a smaller grants of money, but handle kind of collating a final report. It's easier for the large foundations to get one big report on how the money was spent rather than kind of breaking up into literally hundreds of other funds, which is where the money needs to do, because you can't do just one big check to everybody. You have to cut it up, and then each one has to do it. Then you have to do the process of cultivating the information. So it's a very complicated process, and that's where I kind of helped them out there. And there's like a whole bunch of other stuff, but I'm gonna stop here because I kind of rambled for quite some time.
You got a lot to say.
Well, I mean, I think first off, it's obvious. Can you do one thing for our guests? I mean, right now we're serving a wide demographic of young folks too. We're in Virginia. Everyone, I believe, here knows Oliver Hill is. But can you just share with the audience a little bit about your grandfather?
My grandfather was Oliver Hill. He was the second seat in the Brown case when it got rolled up. He was on the
Brown versus Board of Education.
Brown versus Board of Education, desegregated schools, and he was the counsel with Spotswood Robin on the Prince Edward's case, which was bound up into all of the full cases that went to Supreme Court to decide whether segregation was illegal or not for school segregation. And then when it got there, it was Thurgood Marshall was there. My grandfather was a person sitting right next to him. They were longtime friends and colleagues in college as they kind of gone through, and they both kind of did a lot of work. He was the Legal Defense Fund. He helped write the Constitution. There's a statue of him next to the governor's mansion and a building next to him. I think got a street or something. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff up there.
Court building.
Court building, yeah. It's a court building.
Yeah, I mean, and it's so obvious why you do the work you do. I mean, it's in your blood. You have a good bloodline.
Well, I mean, like, he's my step-grandfather, but he's the only grandfather I know.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's been one of those things, like, he's been granddad.
Yeah.
My dad has been dad.
Yeah.
Since I was like 3. It's like, there's a conversation about there's blood that you're born with and there's family that becomes your blood.
Yeah.
And that was one of the coolest things about him is when I grew up, is like, he's granddad, I just remember, like, all my fondest memories, him and grandmother at the house, Christmas, Easter, setting up card tables and card games where, like, literally everybody who was in politics would go and they would play cards at their house, which is something I think that is missing in this moment, is like how much they used to, like, just hang out with each other and be close knit. Like, people don't understand, like, it would be Congressman Scott, it would have been Doug Wilder, it was Senator Lambert at the time, he was a delegate, and you had Henry Marsh and all these people, these brilliant black human beings in politics. They would come and they would just play cards every so often. Then they go to a mules meeting. Then they would see each other at the Alpha Beta Belay. And they're all in these different groups. And there was how close knit they were, and they always were able to help each other and kind of move forward in politics and kind of like help their bill and stuff. Now we're like so kind of fragmented because we all got life.
Busy.
But they don't make time for like that community aspect at whatever level of politics to bring them in. And that's how it became that feeder, because like once he was in there, you were like, you were in the queue.
Right.
That's how it is. Now some people say, oh, that's really cliquish, and it did boxing people out. I will agree to that. However, those products were very, very strong. They didn't let in people who were not good.
Yeah.
There was some brilliant people.
There was a lot of vetting that went with that process.
Exactly. And there's some smart people. Nobody can tell me Congressman Sparta isn't a brilliant human being. That dude is like just incredible. And all those other people who came through there, people may have problems with Doug Wilder, but that dude was really smart. So.
Dang. So you look at the political landscape now that we're in.
They're trying to figure themselves out.
Yeah. I think they need some data from you, sir.
I mean, it isn't a data conversation that they have issues with. What you have here is you got one party that's been out of power for 25 years that finds themselves in power. You got another party that was in power for 25 years finds themselves out of power. So one of them's trying to figure out how to be a minority power, and the other one's trying to figure out how to be a majority power. And it's going to be rocky for a little bit.
Yeah.
The good news is that, they have a little bit of leeway, and there's a lot of people there's a lot of passion on both sides to kind of work that thing out. And there's a lot of good, like, low-hanging legislation and policy pieces that you can pass easily now that help everybody. Like, Medicaid expansion is not blue or red. Restoration of rights, contrary to popular belief, is not a blue or red conversation. Having automatic voter registration is not a blue or red conversation. Now, the pervasive women like, oh, it's going to help Democrats. I'm not so sure that's the case, because you got a lot of people out there in the Southwest part that have never registered to vote, who they would sooner set themselves on fire before they would vote Democrat. You know what I'm saying? But they deserve to have every barrier keeping them from casting their vote taken away. And so that's kind of where those things are. I think those are going to be the easy things to get there, at least they should be. And then they kind of take it from there.
So with the current governor and lieutenant governor drama that's occurred, I mean, this is the governor call you now.
No, that's a client. That's it.
I mean, with all the stuff, with all of that, and it's not really behind us. It's just not being talked about as much. It's been in front of us. It's been right in our face for a long time. But what do you see that's going to possibly change as we go through this next year, due to the fact that so many people have seen our leadership in such a negative light?
This one is kind of tricky. And first of all, I have to be clear, like, all these opinions are my own. They do not reflect that of my organizations and or clients. These are the opinions of Jamaa and Jamaa alone. Having said that,
this has been brought to you by Jamaa himself, Jamaa only, okay? It's endorsed.
Exactly. Is that they're trying to figure out their life too. Right now you have this group of people who are they're on this redemption conversation. They're trying to redeem themselves and their legacy, because that is what all people who run for office go about. It's like, it's their legacy. It's like they don't want that first paragraph of their Wikipedia page to be the worst thing they did. So all of them are fighting to make that not happen, particularly Ralph Northam, in addition to Justin Fairfax, and both of them have significant challenges to that, to make that happen. And I think the thing that they have to figure out the most is that in order to totally get this behind us, you have to center those communities that you were hurt in the response. You cannot try and say, okay, black people are mad at me, let me do some black people stuff. Like, no, you have to center them in your response, because it isn't just about saying like, black people mad, I'm gonna give them some black people stuff. That doesn't work that way. You have to go ahead and find things that the community is hurt. You must go through the pain that they got there to then figure out like what makes them whole, and then give them that thing. You know what I'm saying? Similar with Justin Fairfax. He's like, you got to figure out what would make these people that you've harmed whole, and then you give them that. And it's actually different, because a lot of these things may not be legislative. These may be personal things. Right. So that's kind of what's really hard here. And then you also have to, after that point, you have to do no continued harm. And I got to really harp on that, because you cannot go there, make the black people whole, and then go out and screw the black people on some legislation the next day. It doesn't work that way. In fact, it makes it worse. So you have to not only have to make them whole, you have to do no harm. I'm not saying you have to do what they say, you just don't have to hurt them continually. Because there's going to be those tensions, you don't have that latitude because of the history with that community. And that's just an overall political thing that I see people mess up. Mm-hmm. But, that's what needs to happen, in my opinion.
So in the political landscape, I look at you, I look at all the things that you're involved with, everything that you're doing. Clearly you were stacked with a deck of intelligence and acumen greater than the average muggle.
And political access. There was privilege in the conversation. Political
access and privilege. That's right. Black folks got privilege too, all day.
It allowed me to do some things that a lot of other people could not do.
So what about the rest of us? What about those of us who don't, maybe have not delved into the depths of all of our history, understand everything about how we got here, but we are trying to be involved, trying to make a change? What advice would you give to people who want to be more involved, who are trying to figure this thing out?
When you're talking about doing work and everybody wants to I want to get into the movement, I want to help this community, A, B, and C, it's a conversation about getting into a way where, one, you can sustain your work, a way where you can be impactful, and a way where you can, you have to be goal-oriented. There's a lot of people in the movement who just want to shake their fist at the man. Mm-hmm. They want to they want to scream because they're raging about all the pain they have in this moment. That's totally valid, but it's not productive. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of people who are just emoting in this area. They are communities who are under siege from different actors, and they feel obfuscated. They feel pushed into the corner. They feel they're not being heard. They're not being seen. Those are also very valid, but you have the path through is not the opposite of that. You know what I'm saying? The path through isn't being seen. The path through is being effective. And that's a hard conversation to do, and it's even more difficult when you're doing it by yourself. Right. There's this sense where people want to be by themselves. They want to start their podcast. They want to do their brand. They want to be on online media. They want to be seen on television. They want to be that vocal face and stuff like that. And there's also a problem is that the funders actually kind of gravitate to that to a certain extent, because they go to the thing that is flashy or the thing that is hot, that's big. They don't necessarily go to the thing that's effective. And that's where I got into this thing with the data and technology stuff. It's let's see what actually moves the needle. Let's see what actually helps these communities instead of let's see what's visibly there. So how do people curate the things that are effective? Where would you direct people to go to get good information about what's effective versus what's flashy? I think it's more of a conversation about what do they want to do, and how do they see them, what is your overall goal? I want to get in there and I want to change this thing or these things or help this community, and that should inform what you do more than anything else. It's what I want them to get away from is what I call hamster wheel organizing. It's basically where you got the activists standing in the hamster wheel and they just go. And you're I ain't going nowhere, but you see all this activity. Look at that wheel spinning. It's going. Exactly.
Things are getting better.
Exactly. We're spinning our butts off. Look at all this activity over there because this person gave me money. But it's are you going anywhere? No, but the wheel is going fast. That's literally all they get. And I'm you expended a lot of energy and you made a big show of this, but you didn't move anything. And that's the thing we got to move away from, because some people are just fine with that. They feel like they have moved the needle, and it's hard to tell them it isn't, because that's where egos come in. Right. Because there's a lot of people in these movements where it's ego driven and it's not people driven. And you can tell the difference really quickly. It's I'm the first one to say look, people say, Jamaa, your organization did well. No, I did nothing. My staff did that. I was over there sitting around with meetings every quarter and saying yes and no to stuff. and then I try to support them, and then I get out the way so they can do the work they do, and then I support them as needed. That's how I see my role. The people who did stuff, it was my executive directors, it was my regional directors, it was my leads, it was my canvassers, it was my staff who busted their butts year on end. I'm the guy that brought donuts.
Nice.
I ruined their waistline and their sugar levels. That's literally all I did. So y'all knocking doors, y'all gonna need these.
So where do you stand on everybody and their cousin running for office? Or do you feel like this is a way forward? Because I feel like every third person is running for office.
Well, I think our current president has gotten everybody believing they can do this. They look at that dude like, I can do that,
No, very attention.
They're like, shit, let me put on my shoes and get the door knocking. I can do that. Shoot, you see that fool over there? And so there's like this skewed view of like what's possible now because they're watching this man defy gravity who's obviously just not good at his job, but people are just not caring. And for the black people, I can say, look, you're not going to get that deal because you're black. And he's white. Let's be very clear. That's rule number one. Number two, don't think that you still need to, don't think that just because he sucks at it, you should do it. You need to get sophisticated in this because government is a very complex, intricate entity, and it requires a certain level of expertise. While people say like, well, I don't want somebody who's a career politician, what you got is a whole bunch of neophytes who don't understand the business of government. Because the business of government is a really important thing, and it is something that is unique until itself. It's not the business of business, and the idea that businessmen can be in government or lead government has always been wrong. Right. It is one of those big lies that people tell you. Like, I want a businessman in charge who's going to cut. No, that's stupid because business's job, private business, is there to optimize money, period. Government business there is to optimize service. It's not to optimize money. I know people are like, oh, that's where the waste comes in. No, it's to optimize service. It's important that every American be able to have a mailbox near them to the mail. That is not something optimized by money. That's optimized by service.
So, devil's advocate, I'm a social entrepreneur, and there's a lot of social entrepreneurs out here who aren't just maximizing shareholder value. What about that business sector? Do we need a different business sector trying to run for office? I'm not trying to run for office.
I think if you're going to change the business sector so that it more emulates and takes over the roles of government, something I'm actually not for, to be honest, you need to change the rules on businesses less than change the rules on government. It's a different conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's like people say, well, I think more businesses should be in government. Fine, then businesses need to change. Right. It's not, you don't change government to fit business. That's a terrible idea. Yeah. You change business. And to the point where they're not making money. And I'm like, cool, if you want to, and that's why I'm like, some things should not be in the profit center of America. I think we're now in a conversation heavily on healthcare and some other pieces where, it just makes no sense whatsoever for it to be in the profit generation conversation. Right. Education is now in that place where they've tried the whole social experiment with charter schools, and now even the charter schools are saying, yo, you shouldn't be making money on this because it doesn't provide good education, when money is a key factor, not just a dominant factor, but just a key factor in it, that education goes to pot. You've seen it with healthcare. To me, the jury's in. This is like, we know this stuff doesn't work. Right. It's time to go ahead and change these things back. So that's kind of where I'm with it. But social entrepreneurs, we do need those people, but you have to understand none of them will ever beat the economy of scale of things. And I don't like the fact that they want social entrepreneurship to stand in for government in spaces that they vacated. You know what I'm saying? That is the real thing, because what happens is you've seen the government social safety net. If the net, like the holes in the net, we've made them bigger and bigger and bigger. Hopefully, if you fall, you get to catch one of them and don't fall through, because they keep on screwing up the social safety net. And what happened is people want these social entrepreneurs to fit in these holes to help supplant these roles that government was doing. But what happens is government social safety nets are like, government's a broadsword, not a scalpel, so it gets everybody who fits just a certain set of criteria all over the country, no matter where you are. Social entrepreneurs exist in a certain geography, in a certain square footage, doing a certain piece for a unique community of people. It is not built for a social entrepreneur who can't come in and say, I'm going to do all this shit that, this, and serve all 336 million Americans. This is not going to happen. And I know the tech people say, well, we get apps. Those people make my eyeballs itch because that stuff's ridiculous. So you need to have government to fill these roles. Government has a purpose, but when you have people who go to government to dismantle it, of course, it's never going to work. And that's just me. You know what I'm saying?
Hey, help me understand something here. You was very critical tech architect for the NAACP. In 2012, voter registration program you created that registered over 600,000 people nationally.
Yeah, that was...
What's a van? What is a van?
The Voter Activation Network, which is like the flagship system that everybody in the progressive movement used, from the Democratic Party to Labor to insert social justice organization here. It's a CRM that basically has all the voters you want to contact, and you do it. Now, NAACP had a unique challenge because that's when I was brought in by a guy named Roger Van, another guy, and Ben Jealous during the Ben Jealous era. And Roger Van brought me in. That's when, through McConney, the woman I worked for before, and she recommended me that. I didn't know I was auditioning again. It's like, they do this whole thing. Roger Van was a huge Star Trek nerd. That was an easy conversation to have. And so Roger comes in and he had me for this one project on their hard to count system. So I basically customized the system so that it takes in census tracts so they can go ahead and canvass communities that are in these hard to count areas, which are made up of African American, Latino, high transient, and youth, and get them to pledge to be part of census, which at the time was difficult because we didn't have any technology to do that. I went ahead and worked with their engineers, and we customized it, and we sent it out to them, and they were able to go ahead and do that. And it was very successful. It was more successful than we thought it was going to be, and all the partner groups. Then that ended up being a conversation that led to 2012, where we realized that the NAACP as an organization has more critical infrastructure than any other progressive entity outside of DNC. They have more walls, phones, and doors than anybody else, particularly you're talking about in the Southeast and these areas out there where, it's like nothing but sticks and woods and rural areas, but they're high critical masses of African Americans. And these people wanted to participate. They wanted to do this. They lived to do voter registration. And what I did was I got with those same people at Van again, and they had a product they've been working on, but they didn't have a way to test it or deploy it. So I worked with them. I said, look, if you cut the NAACP a deal, I'll get them to roll it out. They have the bodies that need this to go ahead and run this program to use it. And so we used this system, the voter activation system, so they were the first nonprofit in the country to have every registered voter in the country and every person, every record, anybody who was not registered to vote in the country. And with that, we were able to go ahead and they do a series of programs through mail, through door knocking, through canvassing, through standouts, through all this other work and partnerships. They were able to get in. They actually got in about 800,000 forms, and 600,000 of them actually went through, as because there's a quality assurance process to make sure those things aren't bad. And that was a very successful program. It had a lot of really interesting pieces to it, but it was a really strong program. And it was one of it was like, it served everybody notice, like, the NAACP is back. Because there was a lot of this belief in that. They don't believe that black groups can talk to black groups. Right? They're like, that doesn't make any sense. That's why we gave this money to this white dude. Yeah. So there's a lot of that going on.
Jamal, you've really been a pleasure to have on. It's amazing to learn this information. I feel like you've given us so many jewels today that we're going to be able to chop up and really put out there. No social media?
Nope.
How are we gonna get the world to you?
He doesn't want the world to him.
I don't want the world. If you want to support my organization, New Virginia Majority, you can find them on Facebook, New Virginia Majority. Go there, click it, donate, all that stuff.
You're just dropping off the donuts, correct? I mean, you're not.
Exactly. I just drop off the donuts. They're the ones like I want to support this work. I want to support people doing this work. Go to them. We have so many people on staff. We're engaging people, restoring their rights, doing the critical work of the movement, trying to help so many people, and I have so many brilliant leaders there. They're the true stars of this conversation. I'm just the guy that brings donuts.
It's the Randy Wilson podcast with Tiffany, Jana, and the donut guy.
Oh my goodness.
That man brings donuts.
You're funny, man. I can see why you've been successful because you use humor really well, and I think it makes people comfortable. I would imagine the people that you work with in your office. And
oh yeah,
you're also good at making people uncomfortable though. Let's not get that twisted.
Absolutely true. Like it's like I turn it on when I need to, like, and then weaponize it. I actually had one client that their only job they wanted me to do was like beat up on another vendor. It's the best job ever. Wow. I swear to God. And I enjoy that. They're like, Jamaa, get him. I'm like,
well, I'll tell you, Jamal, you're gonna have to help us out, man. You're gonna have to help us out because when we put this product together, we're definitely gonna give it to you, and I think people need to hear you. So the,
What?
yeah, they do. I need all 600,000 people nationally that you have been able to help to.
You got to call the NAACP. I will call Derek. I say, Derek, he's the CEO. I'm like, they need stuff from y'all.
Yeah.
Give it to y'all.
Well, hey, definitely be prepared because we're going to flood the internet with this.
That's cool.
With the donut guy.
Yeah. Before we close, again, thank you very much, Dr. John. I mean, this was a blessing. I want to establish rapport after. We have Randolph Focus here. They're a photographer, and they do a lot of work with NAACP in Hanover County. I know that he's going to be interested in plugging you and connecting with you. Before we close out, I like to just get familiar with the guest in regard to like what their interests are outside of their career, like little things. Like, are you still a vegan?
You?
Me,
Or vegetarian?
I was raised a vegetarian.
Yes.
I go back and forth. It's interesting, like when you're a vegetarian, you go back to things that you like when you were a kid. So I like my comfort food is like Morningstar soy sausages. It's like that's what I remember as a kid. Like this reminds me, of, baby stuff. So it was really simple there. But me mainly like my non-political things. I like baking pies. Is what I do.
Okay.
I bake pies.
Bake pies and deliver donuts. Okay.
Well, my staff has been like, yo, man, what's up with the pies, yo? They have already on it.
Pies ever.
Really?
Yes.
They come after.
He is the pie bag.
Can I get a sweet potato pie for Thanksgiving?
Yeah, I do sweet potato. I do a chocolate salted caramel. I'm probably going to get an apple. I'm trying to get the apple down. I just don't feel good about it to give it away. And I don't like charge people too. I just give them away.
Oh,
Like,
man.
I need a pie.
I know. When I added vegan to my gluten-free life, he was like, Tiffany, you done overcomplicated it now.
I know,
Man.
right?
I don't get pie anymore.
She does. I'm like, first of all, they're all Southern recipes, so it has butter.
Gotcha.
It's there to kill you slowly, but it's pie. Nobody has healthy pie. Who does that? Right?
Vegans who are gluten-free.
No, it's like the people who have like those like organic cigarettes. I'm like, why?
American
Why?
spirits.
Yeah, that's the dumbest shit ever. Like,
Basically a
you're
vegetable. You're smoking a vegetable.
You're smoking something that's going to kill you. I'm pretty sure it wasn't the pesticide that's the problem.
That's funny. That's funny.
But it's organic. It's a cigarette, man.
Hey, any local restaurant that you love? Any local bar that any?
Because I don't have a home, it's like my usual go-to is like, I usually go to Brewers because I've seen me working there and I talk to those people. It adds a very entrepreneurial lifestyle. Urban hangouts, it's like coffee shops is where I do most of my work because I'm like decentralized. I don't have an office. Bars, I don't really have one because I've been like not drinking as much. But we go to like what's it?
Grand Steppenstein.
That one, which
Yeah.
that's usually where we go to.
Cool. Well, I just wanted to ask those questions so that the guests can get a little bit familiar with you outside of all these career accolades you have. It's amazing. Thank you for joining the show. Dr. Jana, definitely make sure you give them your social media because you're all over it. Let them know where they can get your information.
At Tiffany Jana on pretty much all social media except for Twitter at Twiffany Jana.
Yeah.
I thought I was cute once and I can't get rid of it now. That's right. Go ahead. Laugh at the blue lady.
That's
Do
funny.
it.
That's funny.
Tiffany?
Yep.
I didn't even know that. Okay.
That is my Twitter handle.
not going to judge
and I'm
you.
not changing it now
You
because
do
I
what you gotta
frankly
do.
don't know how. I'm old enough that whatever.
Be free.
Check it out. This podcast will be brought to you everywhere podcasts are, Stitcher, Google Play, Apple, all that stuff, Spotify. But I strongly encourage you to go to YouTube so you can get the visual, so you can see this good-looking man who is he on the market? He's off the market?
He's on the market. He just shaved his head. I want to be shiny.
Shiny for the holidays.
Yeah. So again, thank you for joining Tiffany and I. This is season 2, episode 17. Stay tuned for more episodes of the Randy Wilson podcast. Thank you.
Yeah.